We listened to the Israeli Prime Minister, who offered to talk, and then came Tuesday's announcement by the Israeli government of 1,100 new homes to be built in East Jerusalem, to which the chief Palestinian negotiator, this announcement represents 1,100 no's to mediation efforts. And what's interesting is the context of this. A poll released on Wednesday, on the eve of the Jewish New Year, asked if Israel was a good place to live. 88% say yes. Two-thirds of the respondents, though, say there's no chance ever of achieving peace with the Palestinians, and 45% say they fear for the survival of Israel as a Jewish state. Very mixed messages there, Stefan de Vries. The Israeli economy doing well,
yes,
but it's not splendid isolation, is it?
Well, I was in Lebanon not a very long time ago, and the Lebanese economy is doing very well as well. Both countries didn't suffer at all from the crisis, which is really remarkable. And the thought I had when I was in Lebanon, I was in Jerusalem a couple of months earlier, I thought if these two countries just could get along well, then this would be the new Switzerland of the Mediterranean. It would be an economic powerhouse that would even challenge Europe. And so it's very sad to see that it's not working this way. And this poll also, the 75% is really a lot of people who don't believe in peace with the Palestinians. And if I knew how they could get along, then I wouldn't be a journalist, but probably king of the world. It's a very sad problem, and every week we have different messages. Sometimes it looks like Israel is going to get towards the Palestinian Authority, and then the national politics in Israel are far more important, and they go to a far more extreme position. So it's I don't know what to think of this. I mean, it's going on for 50 years already, 1948, and they don't seem to get along well, and everyone is blaming each other. And
Harold, what I find amazing in that poll is the 45% who have serious existential doubts about the existence of Israel. That talk about doom and gloom.
Well, it's maybe typically Jewish. As a Jew, it's very Woody Allen to doubt your own existence. Maybe that's.
But this looks like something like they really feel like it's like there is this existential threat.
That must be their most realistic trait, because they have one imaginary threat. Okay, it's Iran hurling bombs at them. I mean, if Iran did hurl some sort of atomic bomb, it would destroy Jerusalem and all the Palestinians with it. So it's kind of difficult to see that would really happen. But they do think about this, especially in the higher levels of the armed forces. The Iranian threat, and Iran doesn't even have one bomb. Israel has 300, between 80 and 300. No one really knows. Nuclear bombs, we're talking. So they're sort of worried about the thing not to worry about, which is Iran. I mean, not that Iran is nice, but... And they don't trust the Palestinians, but they didn't give the Palestinians any chance, really. By encroaching in Jerusalem, you might as well just slap 25 Palestinians in the street every day when you go to work, and you're just about doing the same thing. So they've sort of compounded this terrible behavior with the Palestinians from a psychological point of view with this crazy fear of Iran, and this makes this mix that we're in danger of ceasing to exist, which is kind of hard to believe when you see how powerful they are. So I think they're deluding themselves.
We can see on that point the reaction of the United States. Last week we talked at length about what a tough position Barack Obama was in when he went to the UN. Caught between the hopes he raised when he spoke in Cairo in 2009, that speech he gave to the Arab world, and the voters back home who support strongly the state of Israel. We can listen to the reaction of the U.S. Secretary of State on Wednesday, Hillary Clinton.
We believe that this morning's announcement by the government of Israel approving the construction of 11 housing units in East Jerusalem is counterproductive to our efforts to resume direct negotiations between the parties.
Counterproductive. Could she have gone further, or is she stuck in a bind?
Look, all of this is about domestic American politics. I went to and really intra-party politics in the Democratic Party. I went to the UN speech hoping to Abbas, but I was late and saw Netanyahu instead.
Who spoke in English,
not in Hebrew. First of all, it's a tremendous advantage. But he spoke to the American people directly, as if he were a senator speaking on behalf of the 51st state of the United States. And he mixes everything up. Terrorism, Iran, Palestinians. It's terribly unethical what he does, but politically brilliant, because he touches on all the basic fears of Americans. Militant Islam, Iran, 9/11, et cetera, Al-Qaeda, and he mashes them all together in this very, very demagogic but very, very effective way. There is no way the Palestinians can evoke the kind of sympathy that he does. He also brilliantly said he'd run into a couple of Palestinians, people from the Palestinian Authority, who'd said, we won't have any Jews in our new state of Palestine. We, on the other hand, will continue to defend minority rights in Israel, the way we always have. And this sort of thing plays very, very well to the American street and to New York in particular. You can't beat it. But I'll just add one other thing, which I think is very important. The most important player in the Middle East, potentially in the Middle East peace process, that wasn't heard from is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, in my opinion, has no interest in seeing a Palestinian state established. It would probably be a very successful democracy, at least on the West Bank. The Palestinians have I was going to say laïc, excuse me, secular infrastructure of professionals, very bourgeois, very well educated. The Saudis, if they wanted to, could pressure the United States into forcing Israel's hand and forcing some kind of resolution of the crisis. They don't want one. The only statement that the Saudi Arabians made during the entire General Assembly system was a statement on behalf of fighting non-communicable diseases. I'm not making this up. So you have this immense player, and I go back to Obama's double game. He says he wants to help Arabs find their voice and promote democracy and so on and so forth. What's he doing on one of his first foreign trips in June of 2009? He goes to the throne room and with Rahm Emanuel, a son of Israel, and receives a gift from King Abdullah. What is that about? It's about telling the world, telling the Democratic Party, nothing's going to change. I'm for the status quo. I may say this about Arab nationalism or Arab rights or Arab aspirations, but things are going to stay the same.
All right, and one final point on this before we move on. We can see images from Cairo's Tahrir Square after Friday prayers where Egyptian activists staged a protest rally demanding an end to emergency laws and a speedy transfer of power to civilians. Vivian Walt, you were in Cairo last week. You wrote on your blog about how the Camp David Accords are not being put into question, actually, right now.
No. I mean, certainly no Egyptian politicians, and I spoke to many from, the Muslim Brotherhood right through the spectrum, has any desire to tamper with the Camp David Accords for the simple reason that they can't afford a war. And they just simply can't afford to kind of stir up the pot. However, this whole issue around the Palestinian application for statehood in the UN, Obama's, utterly tepid response to this and his assurance to Americans, here again, the domestic political agenda, that he would veto any application, has really infuriated Egyptians.
And suddenly made it an issue?
And made it an issue, whereas really, I mean, I was there through the entire revolution. You never saw an Israeli flag being burnt. It was not on the agenda, and it is really now on the agenda. And aside from that, the Egyptians simply are really befuddled by how stupid the Israelis are not to make a deal at this point.
All right, we'll see if that's an epiphenomenon or whether this is something that is going to last.